How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the UKnowAdamTsang podcast, where you get to know a little bit more about people, passions, and all things business. Today, I'm joined by Donald Chavers Jr., who is the pastor of the Agape Worship Center, and he plans on speaking with us today a little bit more about what he does and what he has in store for us in the future. Donald, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Fantastic. Donald, tell me a little bit about yourself, like, where you're from, how you ended up in Statesboro.
Well, I was born right here in Statesboro. I've been here for 49 years. Country boy, love the great outdoors, farm. Oh, that's my passion. I love farm animals. I like to grow the food I eat. Church. My mother brought us up in church. I've been a part of church all of my life, so that's really all I know. I know a few other things too, but mostly church.
Sure.
And big family, 7 children.
Wow.
It's just a blast.
Mm-hmm. So I guess the first thing that we need to talk about is how did you? You've now led the church for, it seems, 15 years.
Yes.
You recently had your anniversary there.
Right.
Okay. And with that, I mean, how did you was that something that you fell into? Did your family do that at all before?
Well, actually, my brother started that ministry.
Okay.
Some 20 years ago.
Okay.
And he got married, moved away, and sort of pushed me right into it. Mm-hmm. And that's where it began with me.
So did you know that you wanted to?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't know?
I didn't want a pastor.
You didn't want a pastor?
No.
Tell me more about that. So
I did it because it was necessary.
You had no other choice?
I had a choice, but I knew it was better for me
to do that.
What
did you do before you became the pastor?
I was actually worked with the city of Statesboro.
Okay. What did you do there?
Water department.
Water department?
Mm-hmm.
And how long did you work there for?
I worked there 12 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were always kind of tied in with the city before that. And then I guess, after your brother started the church, were you part of the beginnings of the church at all?
Yeah.
Okay. So you were kind of like one of the leaders of when it started.
Well, I did. I led in the praise and worship.
Always?
Basically, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what was different at that point when your brother left?
I had moved over into ministering.
Okay.
Speaking and preaching and going through all of the ordination and all of that stuff. And when he left, he said that it was God's will for me to do it. And I was like, oh, here God's will go again. I want my will. But, and then we moved into it. Me as a person, I didn't want to go in that direction. Mm-hmm. But I knew it was destined for me to go in that direction. Mm-hmm. It's something on down in my innermost being was like saying, do it. Even though I was working with the city and it was easy, great, no problems, something would always, I say something, but the Lord would always speak and say, it's time for you to leave here. Mm-hmm. It's time for you to leave and do something else. I want to use you in another capacity. Mm-hmm. And I would just throw it away, put it back.
Fight it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Until one day he spoke to me and was like, if you don't do this, it's going to get bad here for you. Mm. The people are not going to be bad, but the situation here is going to get bad for you, so you'll get out. Mm-hmm. And so I'd rather get out before things get ugly.
Sure.
And feelings and emotions and all get involved.
So you made that leap. How did that feel when you first did that?
Nervous, scared
really?
To death, terrified. Because people, they have to choose you or accept you before they're willing to actually really listen to you. Mm-hmm. And that takes a terribly long time to win people's real attention. Mm-hmm. And so therefore I was nervous because I'm not naturally what would I call it? I don't naturally enjoy people.
You don't?
No.
Would you consider yourself an introvert?
Yeah.
Really, as opposed to extrovert? Because I've seen you around town, and there's the one word that comes to mind when I think about you is charisma.
Yeah.
And that's always been a part of, like, from the first moment that we saw each other, that was what that was. And you came straight up to me and you're like, how are you doing, so forth and so on. And there was that
Right.
immediate connection. So you say that did not, like, you didn't have that from the beginning.
No, initially I'm a shy person.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since I was a little kid, I'm shy but outspoken.
Okay.
I don't know how that works. I'm now initially shy, but I will let you know exactly how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's like a dog's bark, stay away.
Sure.
Or you're welcome in.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so, you were extremely nervous at the beginning.
Yeah.
How much time did it take before people kind of like started, that you felt that turn started happening?
Well, I always say, for 5 years, I preached them away.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the 6th year, I started preaching some in.
Mm-hmm.
So it
took 5 years for people
Yeah.
to kind of start to accept.
Yeah, because you got a guy that's rough around the edges.
Were you rough around the edges?
He's not socially correct.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm used to spending time with myself. And
Sure.
I'm not socially correct.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little rough around the edges. I'm just saying how it is.
Sure.
Thinking that everybody understands things the way that I understand them.
Sure.
What do you say? Common sense.
Sure.
What's common to me, I'm thinking it's common to everybody else. But no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, for our audience out there, a lot of times some of us are, relatively shy in the way that we carry ourselves. What type of advice would you give to those people? How does someone break out of that?
What broke me out of it initially is having to sing, performing, just getting out there. Initially, I sang in the choir when I was a kid. Okay. No one knew I could sing, so I would stay in the back. But one day, I just felt like singing, and they figured I can. They liked what they heard, and it pushed me out, and that broke the nervousness after several times.
So it came through that kind of like, singing that you started to say, hey, look, like this is, and you are quite the singer, right? Like, I mean, this is now, how long have you been singing since choir?
Ooh, 40 years.
40 years.
Yeah.
So, what is singing to you? Like, what does it mean to you?
Singing is like a getaway, a release, is a ministry. It's just like preaching to me. When I get a chance to sing, I don't want to sing something that doesn't mean anything. It has to mean something to me if I'm going to sing it. And then I'll minister it to you. Because ministering to me is like just sharing what has blessed you, sharing that with somebody else. Not forcing it upon them, slamming them and damning them for it, but just sharing what has helped you. And that's what singing is about.
And I think you can really tell when you perform, right? So for me, I've seen kind of like your performances online. In fact, this past Sunday, I was tuning in just to kind of like prepare for kind of like the interview.
Right.
And I saw you going at it, right? Like you had the towel on head, like you were just, going for it. I was like, oh boy, like this is about to be a great time. Tell me about kind of, there's something soulful. It's more than just the words that you're putting out there. Where does that come from for you?
It comes from broken places, identifying with the brokenness in other people. It comes from even the strongest places in my life and the most meaningful things in my life, and just showering that down on other people. That's why sometimes I feel like sometimes I give it too much. It's like, oh God, I just went over the top, because it's just like coming out of my gut. It's just everything. It's just like releasing all that I am and all that God has ever been to me, religion has ever been to me. It's like just a release of all of it in that moment.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You know, we're gonna hear a lot about kind of like your story, right? So tell me kind of like the different parts.
Now, I was born in 1971.
Mm-hmm.
So, and where I lived, we lived middle ground, Portal area.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up with the awareness of racism, black bathrooms, white bathrooms. It was still going on in little small towns when I was growing up. So with that awareness, it brought about some sense of discernment. And so I can kind of read people based upon that. And nobody really wants to go through that. And it's really hard to understand. It's hard to understand that a person can look at you and their eyes is the eyesight is just demeaning. Just and it looks at you at a way of just saying you're not good enough, and you get a lot of no's. No, we can't. No, that can't. No, and that has a way of sort of beating a person down to is it worth getting up, trying to fight again and reach up again? It was, and then at the same time, I'm born at the time where you are being released to move forward. And you got to fight with these two dichotomies of demean or put that behind you and reach forward. And I'm glad I chose to put that behind me and reach forward. And but we were raised farming, picking tobacco, peas, peanut, anything you could work, raking folks' yards, anything you could do, we did it to put food on the table, to have a house to live in, and to ensure that our smaller siblings, younger siblings, didn't have to deal with what we had to deal with. Yeah, so it gave us a sense of giving back, the importance of pitching in, giving back, so somebody else doesn't have to deal with what you had to deal with.
I didn't realize that that's something that you had gone through. In small towns, you know, that I guess racism was still extremely prevalent. Right?
Yeah, it lingered a long time.
It lingered a long time. So was it something that you recognized as, because you grew up in that, correct?
Yeah.
And so would you ever travel to kind of like larger metropolitan areas and kind of like see what, wow, it's a little bit different here.
Right. We often travel to West Palm Beach and places like that because my father, he was a go-getter. He didn't believe in stigmas, and you couldn't stigmatize him and put him in a little box.
Sure.
He would take us places. But visiting places and living in a place is two different things. So it sort of, when you live around that, it'll sort of mold you if you're not careful. It'll mold you to just keep it, just stay minimal, just don't make a lot of noise. Yeah.
You know, this conversation is really interesting because of everything that's happening in the world right now. You know? I think that there's a lot of turmoil that's happening within the country. Even.
Right.
I guess, you know, in your viewpoint, like, what is your stance on kind of like everything that's happening right now?
It's just a culmination of everything that has always been. It's a collective thing, and it's just coming together, and it's just sort of exploding. Things have to get worse before they get better. That's just Christ even says it. If you're gonna live again, you got to die. So I don't think it's a bad thing because it's just awareness. It's making people aware of what's actually taking place in the world that you've not been aware of. So I don't look at it as a bad thing.
Sure.
But I don't like it when people want to erase history. Don't erase it. Don't deny that it was there. I don't want you to destroy historic things as a way of saying, I don't want to know it happened. I, I like to be reminded of where I came from, or what happened, so it'll keep me centered, keep me balanced. So it's not a bad thing, because it needs to happen.
What do you think the future holds for us, right? Like as a collective, I guess, country, we're going through, everything that's happening right now. What does the future look like?
That's a magic question that I really don't have an answer for. I can say this: it can go very good or very bad. There's no medium there.
Do you think we are on that kind of like teeter totter right now?
We are. We are.
What would push us towards, let's talk towards like optimism, right? So what would push us towards the correct direction, do you think?
I think people practicing just general things like forgiveness. Just looking at a person saying, everybody deserves to be forgiven. That's how I live by the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I live by that rule. And I live saying, I really would like for somebody to forgive me if I did something stupid or wrong or whatever. I would really like for them to forgive me. So that's how I view other people. And I think that would help us a lot in coming to a happy place. Then acknowledging that there has been some bad behavior, misbehavior, because forgiveness without some sort of aligning, it just leaves room for one person to just keep doing it over and over again, and that's not healthy either. Yeah, I see a lot of people saying, "I'm committed to the past. I'm committed to the past. I'm committed to my forefathers, what my forefathers did." Our forefathers did a lot of things out of ignorance. They were not where we are now. So sometimes you have to abandon some of those practices of your forefathers to really move into what the world is where the world is right now.
So what I hear is really not so much living in the past.
Yeah.
But rather living in the present, right?
Yeah.
Right. So like, being able to take the moment that you have right now, as opposed to, hey, everything was incorrect back then.
Right.
And taking those and then bringing them into the surface.
Right. Live now.
Live now.
Live now.
That's a good way to look at it. Let's change directions right now.
Okay.
Let's kind of like, thank you for kind of like that bit and piece in there. Let's change direction now and talk about a little bit about your perspective of business and religion. And we had kind of like talked about this a little bit before we got into this segment. But I guess what I wanted to ask is, as businesses are, it's very important to the end goal of the business is obviously to create revenue. And I think oftentimes, there is a sensitivity around either cultural movements, religious movements, all these different types of things that, businesses usually try to shy away from. They don't want to take a stance because they are in the business of kind of pleasing everyone, right? Like we are here to serve everyone. It doesn't matter, what religion you are, what you believe in, so forth and so on. We're here to sell you product. So, the leadership, how do you feel about that? Because, it goes in certain directions. Like, on one side, you have kind of like Chick-fil-A, right? The Lord's chicken, if you will. Like, that's what they call it, right? Yeah. Like, and they have they don't open on Sundays. Like, they have like certain cores at who they are.
Right.
What, in your viewpoint, what is the place of religion in business? Or is there a place for religion in business?
In my viewpoint, there is a place for religion in business because business is a form of leadership itself.
Okay.
It's a form of tutoring.
Okay.
It's a form of tutoring.
Okay.
And so it's very important that religion has a place in business because business supports ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And you can use whatever business you have as a form of ministry. I look at it like this. Don't look at them as customers. Look at them as people.
Mm-hmm.
People. Not a means to an end.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoy sharing what I have with you. I enjoy bringing you this great food, this great music, this great ambiance. I enjoy bringing this to you, and I'll do whatever it takes to ensure that you have a pleasant stay here, but I won't violate me.
Mm-hmm.
I won't violate my principles
Mm-hmm.
just for you.
Mm-hmm.
I won't violate my principles for you.
Of course not.
Mhm.
To you, do you have a wish that more businesses would follow that guideline?
Yes, I wish they would stick to their gun and understand that you're not called to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's not going to eat so yummy,
That's true.
no matter how good it is.
Sure.
Everybody's not going to enjoy Chick-fil-A.
That's right. I think for the most part, everybody enjoys Chick-fil-A. Let's not call out Chick-fil-A right quick.
I do. but you get what I'm saying.
Yes, of course.
Everybody doesn't like Donald.
Sure.
No matter who does, everybody don't like Donald. And so you have to remember that in the back of your mind. There's a group that I'm called to serve, and I'm going to give them my darn best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That last phrase kind of like pulled me back to, oftentimes people say that if you don't have haters, you're not doing it correctly. Does that kind of like fall into line with what you're saying?
Of course.
Yeah.
You're going to have those. That's just part of doing good. If you're doing it good, somebody's going to say something bad.
Why would people hate on you though?
People like to keep you where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Or it makes them feel good for you to be beneath them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where that comes from.
Donald, let me ask you some questions about kind of like your dreams, right? What is it that you hope to achieve in the future?
In the future, I hope to open a farm that tutors young men and teach them the value of simple living, and teach them how to provide for themselves with meager means, and personal development. I want a whole ranch, the cabins where they come and stay for 3 months, and learn how to live and learn how to give back to society.
Have you done this? Have you run anybody through that program before?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I did it with a couple of ministers when I first started pastoring. I had them feeding hogs, killing chickens.
Really?
We raise it, kill it, cook it, eat it. We go through the whole process. We did the cattle sales. We took cattle to slaughter.
Wow.
And they are like 35 now. And every time they talk to me, they tell me how that experience still plays a significant part in their life right now.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
How long
all
ago
the
was
lessons that they learned while we were on the farm, and how we got a chance to even dig into very personal things. Yeah, we sorted through things like abandoned fathers abandoned them. One, his girlfriend had an abortion, and it really tore him up We went through the funeral service. We did it all. We did everything. And yeah, it's they use it in
To this day.
ministry. Yeah, to this day.
Are they all ministers now?
Two of them are ministers. One is a musician. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So in the future, I think that's the program that you hope to create.
That's the program.
And how long is that program in your mind?
In my mind, it would be a 6-month program.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then after the 6 months, they would go off and
They would go off and put it into practice.
Okay.
And another dream of mine is to revitalize the community. We're actually in the process of it now. Bring it up to a decent living conditions for older people. Not necessarily for people that are able to work for themselves. I want them to be able to live in the houses, and all they have to do is pay their water and electric. But I want them to be able to live there minimally. Yeah.
And so you bring up that topic. What is wrong with the system currently?
Currently, I see a lot of older people being preyed upon by younger people. I mean, they just live on them, and then drug activity picks up when people don't have real responsibilities.
Sure.
Something that makes them have to get up every day and go do something at a certain time. And then the easy living, the concept that you can have something without pouring a lot of energy into it, and they're being preyed upon. You got people just living on them.
So the younger folks are kind of like moving in on kind of like the older folks.
Yeah.
And basically, taking advantage of that relationship.
Right.
And
using their houses as offices or yard as an office to do whatever they do. Yeah.
I didn't even know that this was an issue. Is this existing in Statesboro as a community?
Certainly. Yeah.
Do you think it's across the board? Everywhere?
Yeah, everywhere. Younger people, it's known. Younger people are living with their parents. They're not getting out anymore. They're just living with their parents.
How do you change that?
My plan is to require them to go. So if the older woman moves in, she's not allowed to let her children stay in her house. She's just not allowed to do
Where
that.
the kids are going to live? They don't have anywhere else to go.
They're adults. They're not kids. They're adults.
Sure.
So you provide. I mean, that's hard.
Some families, the family unit is very close. So one side of it is that the parents are saying that, okay, we don't want you to live here anymore, right? Or we want you to live here. So how do you kind of like fix that, right? Because is the issue coming from the parent side, or is the issue coming from the children's
It's
side?
two-sided.
Both sides.
It's both sides. Because a lot of parents want them there. They want them. They just want them there. And then there are others that just want them gone. Never come back. It's two-sided. And then there are some children that have not even been trained.
Sure.
To provide for themselves.
I mean, that's a real statistic out there, meaning that, this generation, more so than any other generation out there, there's a large amount of, kids that live at home.
Right.
Let's, again, change the topic.
Okay.
Let's kind of like go into something else. What makes you passionate about the work that you do as a pastor?
What makes me passionate about it is what it has done for me as a person. Being a pastor has changed me in the best way ever. It has opened me up to understand that life is not just about me and my personal desires. Because before I had a tendency to be self-indulged. like I really didn't need people to be happy. But pastoring has taught me the power of connectivity and the beauty of social living and serving. Serving is the most beautiful thing in the world. It is so rewarding to be able to serve and serve from an authentic place, not serving from a place of am I a people pleaser? Have they been pleased? Are they satisfied? But serving from the place of this will definitely benefit you. I know it will because it has benefited me. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I feel that pastoring is perhaps like leadership at its most pure form, right?
Right.
For you, what are the lessons that have been taught through your pastoring that you would like to kind of like bring to the podcast and tell people about how to conduct themselves in a leadership role?
Okay. Pastoring, I know people believe that, you can do no wrong. But that's a lie. The thing about leadership is when you do wrong, what are the steps that you put in place to make sure you don't go back into that again or elevate that wrong into a place where it's okay to be wrong? It helps people to understand that no matter what we go through or what we have to deal with, we have what it takes to get us through it, out of it, especially if we have a relationship, in my view, with Christ, that we have a voice, a written, a manual, a guide to get us through whatever we are faced with. And pastoring as a leadership, you have to step up and be the guy that everybody notices or the girl that everybody notices and be perfectly okay with it. You have to let people see you live life. They have to see you at your worst place in life and see how you function. And then they have to see you at your best and see how you function. They have to see. I remember when I first started pastoring, I didn't understand the financial side of it. And I was like losing, car repossessed,
going through it.
Yeah, house in foreclosure, all kinds of things. And people were watching me. Is he gonna fall apart? Is he gonna beg and cry? Is he gonna whine? No. There's an inner strength that says these are material things. You obtain them once, you can obtain them again. Because if something's wrong, that means you need to refocus. If you're losing your car, you've done something wrong. You haven't properly prepared yourself to move into what you've moved into. Pain is there for a reason. It's an indicator. Whenever you're going through things, it's an indicator. You pay attention to what's going on in your life. Don't just sit out and, I'm dying. You'll die.
That's right.
Yeah. Let people watch you. And that's what leadership is all about. Bringing people along as far as you can carry them, and then leaving them to do what you've done.
I hear lead by example.
Yeah.
Right?
You're better with words.
Yeah. No, I just try to summarize and kind of like pull it all together.
Yeah.
I feel like that is definitely something that is true. How do people get in touch with you? What's the best way to kind of like reach out to you if they have any questions, or how do they follow your journey with everything that you do?
Well, I'm not a Facebook person or anything, so you have to reach out to me through Agape Worship Center's page. Just reach out to me through the church means, and you can also reach me at 489-2612. Yeah.
Almost forgot the number
Yeah.
there.
912-489-2612. And we can make things happen.
In any last words for, I guess, the podcast? Anything that you'd like to let them know?
I would like to end the podcast with life is meant to be lived. So live it. Live it without regrets. Life is meant to be lived. And not only lived, but life is meant to be handed down or passed off to somebody else. So live life, but make sure you leave a legacy. Make sure you leave a legacy. Make sure that somebody cries when you die.
Love it. Mm-hmm. Well, Donald, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming onto this show. And then, leave that legacy.
Leave that legacy. It's great. Adam, You're a great guy.
I appreciate it.
You got great energy.
Thank you.
Love you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Love you too.